Welcome on into the Auburn Express, powered by the War Report. I'm your host, Mike G, and thank you so much for turning us up and turning us on live from SEC Media Days. Day 3, I'm here with my guy, Chris Phillips from SEC Unfiltered. Twice. This is the second time he's sitting down. Don't do that many times, but I definitely want to get your take on this NIL stuff. We heard from Brent Venables today. We heard from Kalen DeBoer today. Alabama is one of those schools doing super well in recruiting, Chris. And a notable GM said to me today that schools are blowing a third of their cap on a few players. And the only way they're doing that is if they're spending as if this cap doesn't exist. I want to get your thoughts again, man. Like, is it the right thing to do to act as if the rules will be enforceable? Or if you're way behind in recruiting right now, should you be throwing caution to the wind?
It's always felt like in the SEC, Mike, if you're not bending the rules, you're falling behind. And that's, it still feels like listening to these coaches. They all talk about this salary cap type of feel, but we still have more questions that feels like we have answers right now, right? So you have a certain allotted amount, but if everybody's getting that amount, it's up to them to divvy it up however they want. I've actually talked to coaches in other sports that are dealing with percentages and how much they're going to be getting. They've got their own struggles when it comes to recruiting, portal, how they're allocating funds. The schools that if you're willing to win at any cost, literally you're going to be willing to win at any cost. So I'm not throwing accusations out there, but you mentioned like the Auburns, the Oklahomas of the world, maybe taking a more conservative approach. It's honorable, it's noble, but I don't know if it's going to be the winning formula when you've probably got some other schools that the money's going to come from somewhere, Mike. Like, we can't kid ourselves and joke ourselves, and until we're willing to throw down some harsh punishment, set an example. I'm not saying who it should be, what it should be, whatever. I don't have all those answers. Like Lane Kiffin was asked this question. What would your punishment be for going over the cap or doing some of the things you're talking about? He said, I don't know, right? So it's still a lot more questions than answers. And, again, the schools that have been willing to spend and do whatever was they felt like necessary to win and win big and get the pieces in place, a.k.a. the players, they're going to continue to do it. Am I wrong? Until something is set in stone where, hey, there's serious punishment if you're caught, ask for forgiveness, not permission. That's kind of, it feels like the mindset, the way some of these schools are operating.
I don't know that 1 year really hurts you if it's not enforceable and you pivot the year after and you start dropping the cash. It may, if you've recruited well up until this point, you could probably survive 1 year of down recruiting because you weren't willing to blow through the cap. You're going to get some good athletes in. It may not be as deep a class as you would have liked it to be, but I got to think, taking the chance on staying out of trouble for this 1 year could pay dividends because you can always about face the year after.
Yeah, I will say I think fan bases have never had less sympathy for coaches and, even the athletes, but certainly the coaches because they're so well compensated. But, yeah, I think you've got to look at it from the short-term play and the long-term play. Like you said, if we're really truly moving towards a place where some of this stuff is going to be enforced, and I want to see, like I hear Greg Sankey talk about it all the time. We want structure. We want, we want guardrails up. We want to enforce some of this stuff. I'd like to see it in action. We've had so much talk over the years, and especially recently. Let's see some action. So, again, more questions than answers right now, Mike. It is a bit of a frustrating topic, but I think for the long-term play, you are right. Maybe taking it on the chin right now while some of this stuff is getting worked out. Then again, I could flip it on the other side. Why not take the risk and force the NCAA's hand? Are you actually going to do something? I think that's probably what a lot of them are doing. They're still sort of operating freely as is right now. So I don't really know if there's even a right or wrong answer at this point.
Let's change gears and start talking about the season. Now that you've had a chance to hear from most of the coaches, we still got one more day to go here in Atlanta at the College Football Hall of Fame. But give me your SEC champion this year, Chris. Who wins the conference and why? I still feel like this is Georgia's league, but there are a lot of people who disagree with me.
Yeah, it's interesting how it shapes up for Georgia, too, because that home schedule, right? All those road trips they had last year, they all come to Athens. My SEC champion right now, though, I'm going to go with Texas. I feel really good about Texas that they get back to Atlanta, and I actually have Texas and Alabama in the SEC championship game. And I think Texas kind of gets some redemption for last year, ends up hoisting the trophy. It just, to me, like you look top to bottom, the roster I think is maybe the best in college football. They kind of feel like last year's Ohio State to me a little bit. You look at what they've supposedly spent on the roster. There was a lot of deflecting from Sarkisian about NIL, what they're spending. But they've obviously invested a lot into the talent on their roster. I think they're as complete as any. I mean, I know they lost a lot, obviously. A lot of that of the offensive line, I think, is a big key for them. But I do believe in Arch Manning. Is he going to win the Heisman Trophy? I think that's setting the bar a little bit crazy high. But he's got all the skill set, the pedigree, dual-threat quarterback. Obviously, we saw some flashes of it last year. He does have some capable weapons on the outside. Again, there's questions offensively, but they might have the best defense in college football. And the schedule's more difficult. Don't get me wrong, but I think it shapes up really well for them yet again to win at least 10 games. So, the big one for them is the game in Athens against Georgia. They're breaking in a new quarterback themselves, with Gunnar Stockton. Obviously, that's the big question. A lot of these contenders have that question, but it feels like to me Texas is the team to beat in the SEC. And you're right. I have so much respect for Kirby and for Georgia and what they've built. And, I would agree with you until we see otherwise. It still feels like the SEC kind of runs through Athens. But I think we might see a changing of the guard this year. I think Georgia still going to be very, very good. But like I said, I got Texas Bama in the title, and I got the Horns hoisting the trophy.
Chris, I'm going to go a different direction here. Who from the SEC should make the playoff but won't?
That's a really good question. I mean, we could go Auburn with this, really, truly. I mean, who should make it? Because the four that I feel confident, and then I think there's a step down in regards to tiers, LSU, Alabama, Georgia, and Texas. Now, of those top four, who's most likely not to make the playoff that should? I'd probably say LSU. And I like that team a lot. I mean, what they did in the portal was really notable. But Garrett Nussmeier probably scares me more than any quarterback in the league. And he's my number one rated quarterback in my rankings, take it for what it's worth, going into the season. But I've said it many times, Mike, he's like the pitcher that throws 100 miles an hour that at times just has no clue where it's going. When he's on, stuff's as good as anybody. He's a first-rounder. But when he's off, if he's turning the football over again like he did last year, they will not make the college football playoff. He's got to cut those turners, I think, at least in half for them to reach the goals. But LSU's a team with the ceiling, could win the SEC, I think even could compete to win the national championship. So of the top teams, they're the one that I think if there's a one that doesn't make the playoff that should, certainly them. But again, to that next tier, I mean, dude, I think you could look at an Auburn. I mean, I was talking about it today. You can fall in love with that roster if you look at it long enough. And if you were to put, for what it's worth, a different logo on it or a different set of circumstances, like if they were coming off an 8-win season last year, how much different the vibe and the mentality would be. I don't want to set like unfair expectations, like Auburn fans should be holding Hugh Freeze to the fire if they go 9-3 instead of 10-2. But, I think in that next tier, I think Auburn, that's as good an argument as any, that they should be, at minimum, we've talked about a contender going into November. If they are not, something went terribly wrong.
Let's go the opposite direction. Who shouldn't make the playoffs from the SEC, but who shouldn't but will make the playoffs?
Now, that's a good question. Because I feel like last year was a really good indicator. Like, I don't know that you're going to be able to fluke your way to 10 wins. You know what I mean? When it comes to schedules, I'm trying to think. I mean, who's, like a Missouri's got a really workable schedule, but I don't think they're going to. Ole Miss has got a workable schedule. I wouldn't say that they shouldn't. I mean, they're a team that can maybe, overcome a porous defense because the offense will be so good, and again, the schedule works out for them. It's tough to say, man, because I don't think you're going to fluke your way there. I don't know that we're going to get to a year where you accidentally, mysteriously, smoke and mirrors win 10 games. Now, I guess Tennessee was an example last year. Some folks thought they shouldn't have been in. But, God, if Auburn gets there, they earned it. If Oklahoma gets there, they earned it. I mean, if South Carolina gets there, they earned it. Again, maybe the teams with the softer schedules, maybe – and so much of this is context-driven and what it looks like. So I maybe, off the top of my head, maybe it's like an Ole Miss who – they're winning these high-scoring games, and the schedule's really soft. And, they're going to score a lot of points, but it's tough to say because, again, I don't think you fluke your way there, Mike.
Chris, who is the biggest disappointment in the SEC this year, and why is it Lane Kiffin and Ole Miss?
It's a good question. I know how you feel about the Rebels, Mike. Frauds. Are we already putting them on the frauds on the power rankings? We're putting the fraud stamp on them? No, I think the team that's going to be the biggest disappointment that everybody's hyping up, and I think the most overrated team coming into this season is South Carolina. Not Lenora Sellers. Lenora Sellers is a stud. He's a top 3 quarterback in the league. He might be the best quarterback in the league. But anybody who's ranking them near or in the preseason top 10, and they've been ranked there, anybody who's putting them there in the preseason is just off their rocker, Mike. Like, they lost so much on defense. Great defense. You lose guys like Kyle Kennard, Debo Williams, Nicky Manwari. Again, they lost both starting linebackers. They got talent coming back. Don't get me wrong. Dylan Stewart headlines it off the edge. But, I mean, for them, it's like, who's going to catch the football? Like, who's going to help Lenora Sellers out? They need to pray that Rasul Faison gets eligible, because if he doesn't, who's toting the rock? Rocket Sanders was such a big piece of that last year. He was such an underrated piece. And, Mike, they won a lot of close games. And also, let me put into perspective, too. Everybody that's touting them is going to go to the playoff. And I know people can say that history doesn't matter, the past doesn't matter, but it's a pretty good indicator of what's going to happen. That South Carolina program has won 10 or more games 4 times in the history of the program. They've won 9 or more games 8 times. So if you want to pick them to go to the playoff, fine. But understand the historical significance of what you are saying. It'd be the 5th time ever in over 100 years of football that they've reached 10 wins, which is what they'll have to get to in order to get to the college football playoff. So I think from a standpoint, and I'm not saying they're the most overrated, like they're going to be awful and go 2-10, but so many people are putting these playoff expectations on them, and I just don't see it. I think they're floating closer to a 6-6 or 7-5 type of season. Maybe could get to 8-4. I mean, I capped out their ceiling at 9-3, and I think that's even aggressive. I mean, that's winning virtually every swing game again. And as great as Lenora Sellers is, you can't do it with one guy in this league, Mike. Like, you better have a running game. Line of scrimmage is always a question with South Carolina. You better have another guy off the other edge to help out Dylan Stewart, or they're going to neutralize him. So there's some good individual pieces there. I just don't think that team is built to make a run of the playoffs. So, in my opinion, they're the most overrated team, overhyped team of any coming in the season.
All right, there you have it. South Carolina overhyped. Chris Phillips from SEC.
Really well, Mike. That's going to go really well.
Yeah, they're going to love that one on social media. How about best player in the league this year? Who is the SEC's marquee player this year?
That is such a good question, because there's so many of them. The guy who I think will be the marquee player, I mean, I got him in the SEC title. It feels too easy to go Arch Manning. It's kind of like winning the Heisman, though, Mike. Like, you've got all this pre-built hype. Like, if he's just pretty good, if he's just slightly above average, we're going to make it out to be like he's the greatest thing ever, right? Because I know the expectations are high. I don't know if he's going to get nitpicked like some folks think. Of the guys that we know of that are returning, maybe it's Cam Coleman. I mean, it could be a Ryan. I'm trying to think of some of these big-time wide receivers. I'm not giving you a great answer here, because I hate to go the low-hanging fruit of Arch Manning, even though it's hard not to. I think the surprise player is going to be John Mateer. I do. I think he's going to be a baller. I wasn't extremely high on him in my quarterback rankings, but that's just where I have him now. It's not where I think he's going to finish. I think he's going to be a big-time surprise player. But, yeah, I mean, I'll go Arch Manning. I think Arch is for real. I really do. I think he's going to ball out. He has that gunslinger mentality that Quinn Ewers just did not have a season ago. I think he's going to be willing to take those deep shots that maybe Quinn wasn't as willing to do. So I think that's going to lead to some big-time plays. So I think Arch is going to be the guy we're talking about. But I won't be surprised one of those big-time wide receivers is the breakout dude, especially if finally Auburn has that 1,000-yard receiver for the first time in forever. So
let's end on a fun one. Most likely coach to get fired this season at the end of the year.
End of the year. There's some that I think could get fired middle of the year, for being totally honest. Most likely, I'm going to go Sam Pittman. Just at some point, like, there are programs in this conference that just don't have a lot of juice right now, right? Arkansas is one of them. I mean, I remember going down there last year, Mike, and It was before the Tennessee game, and I mean, it's just woe is me. Like, let's just please get this over with. Like, you got some in the fan base that are hoping they lose so they can move on to a new era, and I get it because it's kind of just like lather, rinse, repeat. I don't think Arkansas is going to be very good either, and I don't know in what world if they go 5-7 you can justify bringing him back again. But what's crazy is the expectations are so low there. Talking to people, they're talking about, hey, as long as he goes 7-5 or better, he's back. I'm like, what are we doing? What are we doing down in Fayetteville? The problem, again, they've got Taylon Green, who's a really dynamic player at quarterback. You talk about I don't know who they're going to throw it to. I mean, they don't have anybody on their roster even as good as Andrew Armstrong. You lose to Quentin Jackson from a season ago. I love T. Will on the defensive side. I know you do as well, one of the best in the game, but their schedule's also brutal. You know, you trade out Oklahoma State for Notre Dame in the non-conference. Granted, they come to your place, but yeah, I think most likely I'd go Sam Pittman. It's ran its course. I think it finally reaches a dead end this year.
Well, there you go. Our mutual friend Josh Pate said take the under on Arkansas at 5.5, which is brutal, Chris.
If you go 5-7 and bring back Sam Pittman, you're just an unserious program. You just are. How can you justify you care about winning? I don't think you can. So even at 6-6, I think they'll have a pretty tough conversation. Maybe the question is, does he step down instead of being relieved of his duties? But I think there's going to be a change.
There you guys have it. Some hot takes from our friend Chris Phillips at SEC Unfiltered, live from SEC Media Days. Thank you so much for joining us. So we're out of here, but before we go, I want to thank our friends at the Vibe Vault. Visit the Vibe Vault at 3462 Crosswinds Road, Suite E in Phoenix City, Alabama. If you're looking to get fresh for the weekend, they're not just barbers, they're lifestyle consultants. We also want to thank our friends at Golden's Cast Iron. Visit goldenscastiron.com/WR. Use code Get Your Weight Up for 15% off your weights and code TWR for $65 off fire pits and Kamado grills. Golden's Cast Iron, work out, grill out, chill out with Golden's Cast Iron. Also want to thank our friends at CameraGraphics.net for providing all the wonderful equipment that filmed today's interview. Great partners of the War Report. We appreciate them for sponsoring this segment. We'll be back tomorrow with more great content from SEC Media Days. We're signing off, and as always, War Eagle.